Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret language of Python. It's all about the operators. These are the core symbols and keywords that build literally everything from the simplest scripts to the most complex AI. Honestly, mastering them is totally non-negotiable. So let's jump right in.
So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off by mapping out all the operator families. Then we're going to dive into how Python crunches numbers and handles logic. After that, we'll uncover some secrets for writing way faster code and even take a peek under the hood to see what's happening at the machine level. And you'll definitely want to stick around for the end, because that's where we'll put it all together in a really cool real-world example.
All right, let's start with the big picture. Programming can sometimes feel just infinitely complex, right? But the reality is every single algorithm, I don't care if it's a tiny script or a massive AI model, it's all built from just a handful of these fundamental operator families. Okay, think of this as our master map. In Python, we basically get 7 distinct toolkits. We've got arithmetic for math, assignment for storing our values, comparison for, checking relationships, and logical for all things truth. Then there's membership for seeing if something's inside a collection, identity for checking an object's uniqueness, and finally, bitwise for that super low-level machine stuff. Let's go ahead and explore each one.
All right, first up, the math engine. We're going to start with the operators that do all of Python's calculations and then store the results away in memory.
So over on the left here, we see a really crucial distinction. A single slash gives you true division, which always results in a float, like 3.333. But the double slash, that's for floor division. It does the math, and then just like this arrow shows, it just chops off the decimal entirely, giving you a nice clean integer. And on the right, we've got the modulo operator, the percent sign. The easiest way to think about it is like a clock. If you ask, what's 14 modulo 12, it's really like asking, what time is it 14 hours after midnight on a 12-hour clock? The answer, of course, is 2. This thing is incredibly useful for any kind of cyclic process. Now let's talk about a feature that was a real game changer for a lot of Python developers, the walrus operator. Its official name is an assignment expression. So the old way, it was always 2 steps. First, you'd get the length of something and assign it to a variable, say n. Second, you'd use n in an if statement. But the walrus way is just so much more elegant. Right inside the if statement, n:= len dataset does 2 things at once. It figures out the length, and it assigns that value to n right there. It's just a beautiful way to make your code tighter and way more readable.
Okay, next up, we're moving from just doing math to actually making decisions. These are the operators that let our programs ask questions, compare different values, and check conditions. This is the real foundation of any intelligent code. In a lot of other languages, if you wanted to check if a score is between 0 and 100, you'd have to write something clunky like if score greater than 0 and score less than or equal to 100. I mean, it works, but Python gives us a much cleaner, more Pythonic way to do it. If 0 less than score less than or equal to 100. It reads just like you'd say it out loud, but here's the kicker. It's also more efficient. In that first example, Python has to find the score variable in memory twice. But with the Pythonic approach, it only has to look it up once. It's a small thing, but it's a really elegant optimization.
So here's a classic programmer's riddle for you. When are 2 things that look exactly the same not really the same? Now this question gets right to the heart of a very subtle but absolutely critical distinction in Python.
And this slide just illustrates the answer brilliantly. Okay, look on the left. The magnifying glass shows us that list A and list B have the exact same values inside them, 1, 2, 3. The double equals sign checks for this kind of equality, and yep, it returns true. But now look at the memory diagram on the right. There are actually 2 separate objects living at 2 different addresses in memory. The is operator, it checks for that. It's asking, are you literally the exact same object? And the answer is no, so list A is not list B. But then look at list C. It was assigned directly from list A, so they both point to the very same object in memory. And that's why list A is list C.
Let's talk about finding things. The in operator, it looks the same whether you're searching a list or a set. But what's happening under the hood is a totally different story. For a list, Python has to do a full scan. It's kind of like taking a flashlight and checking every single box, one by one, until it finds what it's looking for. But for a set, it's completely different. It uses something called a hash function. It's this clever algorithm that instantly turns the thing you're looking for into a memory address. It doesn't search, it just calculates the exact spot and jumps right to it. It's pretty much an instant lookup.
Now, this difference has a massive impact on performance. A list scan has what we call ON complexity. In simple terms, that means the search time grows in a straight line with the size of the list. A million items might mean a million checks. A set hash, though, is O1, or constant time. It takes the same tiny fraction of a second to check a set with 10 items as it does with 10 million. So the takeaway here is crystal clear. If you need fast membership tests, you should always be choosing sets or dictionaries.
Okay, so we know how to compare things. Now let's talk about controlling the flow of our program and writing smarter, more efficient code by taking advantage of how Python actually runs our logical operations. This is such a clever optimization. Think of the AND operator like a strict gate. If that first condition, check cache, turns out to be false, well, the whole expression can't possibly be true, right? The gate is already closed. So Python just completely skips running the second part. The OR operator is more like an eager gate. If the first condition is true, the whole thing must be true. And Python eagerly moves on, again, skipping the second part entirely. And this right here is why you should always put your fastest, cheapest checks on the left side of the expression. So what happens when you throw a really complex expression at Python? How does it know what to do first? Well, it follows a super strict order of operations. And this precedence pyramid illustrates it perfectly. Just like in your old math class, parentheses are king. They're right at the top. From there, Python just works its way down the pyramid. It'll do exponentiation, then multiplication and division, then all the comparisons, all the way down to the logical operators, with the simple assignment happening at the very, very end. Let's actually trace that pyramid with the example from the last slide. So Python sees x equals 5 plus 3 times 2 greater than 10 and not false. Following the rules, it starts with multiplication. 3 times 2 becomes 6. Then addition, 5 plus 6 is 11. Next up, the comparison. Is 11 greater than 10? Yep, that's true. Then the logical not false becomes true. Then the and, true and true, is of course true. And only now, at the very end of all that, does the assignment operator kick in and give the final value of true to our variable x. Okay, so we've covered all the high-level logic. Now we're going to peel back another layer. Let's take a look at how these operators work a little closer to the machine itself, and how Python gives us the power to customize how they behave. So these are the bitwise operators, and these things, they don't work on the numbers 5 and 3, they work directly on their binary forms, the actual ones in zeros. This makes them incredibly fast for certain low-level jobs, like manipulating individual pixels in image processing or setting flags in network protocols. The shift operators are especially cool. Shifting all the bits of a number to the left by 1 position is a blazing fast way to multiply it by 2, and shifting to the right is a super fast way to integer divide by 2. Why? Because you're working directly in the computer's native tongue. And now for some hidden magic. Have you ever wondered why 3 plus 4 gives you 7, but pi plus thon gives you Python? It's all because of something called operator overloading. That plus sign, it's just a convenient shortcut. Behind the scenes, Python is actually calling a special internal method. We usually call them dunder methods. It's short for double underscore because they start and end with 2 underscores. So for the plus sign, it might call underscore add for integers, or it might call underscore concat for strings. And the coolest part is this means you can actually define exactly how your own custom objects should react to these standard operators. Okay, so we've toured all the individual families of operators. For our big finale, let's see how they all come together, how they work in perfect harmony to build a little piece of a real-world data processing pipeline. So, the big question is, how do all these different tools actually come together in a real-world scenario? Let's check out a single, powerful line of code that pulls from literally everything we've just learned. This is just a perfect example. Let's break this one line from a while loop down. First, the walrus operator captures incoming data into the batch variable. Right after that, the isNotIdentity operator safely checks that we actually received some data. Then, the greater comparison operator checks the batch size. The AND logical operator cleverly short-circuits if the size happens to be 0, which prevents an error. Next, the NotIn membership operator validates the dictionary keys, and finally, the plus equals compound assignment operator updates our running total. That is 6 different operator types, all working together in one single, elegant line of code. And all of that brings us to our ultimate cheat sheet. When you're thinking about operators, it's really helpful to group them into 3 main jobs. You've got the ones that handle math and memory, the ones that control logic and flow, and the last group that manages state and mutation.
If you can keep this mental model in mind, it'll help you pick exactly the right tool for any programming challenge you face. So let's end with this final thought. Operators are not just syntax. They are the interface between human logic and machine execution. Think about that. They aren't just symbols you have to memorize. They're the verbs of the programming language. They are the fundamental commands that translate your intent into actions a computer can actually understand. Master them, and you've really truly started to speak the language of the machine. Thanks for joining me.